Welcome to Ceasefire, where civics meet civility and engagement meets empowerment. Ceasefire is hosted by former Bernie ISD trustee and owner of the Bernie Bookshop, Dale Adams, and by former Bernie City Council member and local insurance agent, Ron Cisneros. Ready, aim, ceasefire.
Good morning, Kendall County. This is Ceasefire. My name is Dale Adams.
And I'm Ron Cisneros.
And today we've got a topic that you may not think about all the time, but I do pretty regularly. And that is, there's always someone trying to conquer the world. And I actually thought this first when I used to have discussions with my mom about why America needs a strong military. She was a bit of a pacifist and didn't think that we should have armies and militaries and stuff like that. And it'd be nice if we didn't. But I was like, there's always somebody trying to conquer the world.
And you find out about them at a very young age. When we were discussing the idea of the show, the first thing I thought of was back in school, high school, college. One of my least favorite things to do was to break off in a group. And the reason for that is, well, there are a lot of reasons for it. But one, you get graded on the entire group project, right? Not just on your individual efforts, but somebody else's efforts or lack thereof. But there was always that one person that had to be in charge. And that person thought that they knew better than everybody else. They wanted to delegate, and usually they delegated very little effort on their own part, so most of the work went out to everybody else. And they considered what little effort they put in as their work, or their delegation was their work, right? And then these people graduate and they become your elected officials.
And that's their first step towards conquering the world.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
And some people gravitate to that. They just like it, like the delegation. They like the decision-making, and that's where you end up as in government, because that's where you get to do that without having to do anything else.
Why do people gravitate towards power?
Well, I mean, you can look back at insecurities and all this other kind of stuff and needing to feed yourself and your family and whatnot. But I think it goes deeper than that. I think it's because we are social animals. We seek interaction with other social animals, other people. And innate in that is the comparison, and then you get the ranking, and then there's the desire to dominate, because that's part of the social animal aspect. All social animals, a pack of horses will have the lead horse, right? But it's just part of being a social animal. But there's always going to be those that thrive on dominating others.
Right. And I do think that within every one of us, there is that desire to be in charge in some way or in some place. But for many of us, we sort of abdicate responsibility on the government side of things, and say, okay, look, I really don't want to have to be involved in the HOA or the city council or the school board. And so we put other people in charge of that. And so government we kind of push away. And we open the door for these certain personality types to come in and say, well, I will definitely grab that power. And I'm not saying every elected official is this way, because then I would I'd like to think you and I were different. But
we did leave before we were pushed out.
That's true. But yeah, so there's a certain personality type, and I've seen them before. There's you just get that vibe from them, like this person needs to be in charge.
Yeah.
And they're going to give us a lot of rules.
And people with that drive are naturally drawn towards elected positions. Have you ever read Hayek?
Yes, I have.
Road to Serfdom?
Yes.
One of the big things that I took away from that was that every occupation, every activity draws people that like it. I mean, if you like working with your hands, you're drawn to an occupation where you build things or you make things with your hands. And if you have a job or a position that rules other people, it's going to draw people that like to rule other people. And I think that's what we've got. They're all drawn by the desire to rule. Now, some are good and some aren't so good, but even the good ones like to rule other people, and that's why they're there. It used to be in our country that politicians didn't necessarily go out and campaign on their own. And usually they didn't even seek it initially. Somebody came up to them and said, hey, you need to be the mayor. And they're like, oh, no, I don't want to do that. Yeah, sorry, you're going to do that. And they sort of drafted them into it and pushed them into it. And you ended up with some pretty good ones, maybe not always, but we don't do that anymore. Nobody goes into politics except those that want to go.
All right.
You know? That's why I'm going to force you to run for something.
No. Only thing I'm running for is the border. I did my tour of duty.
You did.
Yeah.
You did.
As did you.
You know, this idea of conquering the world is pervasive in our social culture. If one day you have to choose between the world and love, remember this. If you choose the world, you'll be left without love. But if you choose love, you will conquer the world. Now, his point is to choose love over domination, but he ends up by reaffirming that deep desire to dominate. And I was looking through, and there's all kinds of quotes along those lines, like, to conquer the world, you must first conquer yourself, meaning your emotions and your own behavior, and get your life together before you can go out and conquer the world. And it's not saying that you should conquer the world, but sort of built into the phraseology is this concept that conquering the world's a good thing.
That's interesting. As I grabbed a quote myself from another pacifist, and this goes right in line with what you just said. And this is from Gandhi. He said, power is of two kinds. One is obtained by the fear of punishment, and the other by acts of love. Power based on love is 1,000 times more effective and permanent than the one derived from fear of punishment. But like you just said, he's still saying power. You know, he's talking about as if it's a good thing. You know? And almost his argument is that there's power in that, and so we're still talking about power.
But we're not addressing that inner drive to dominate, which honestly, I would like to see less of that at all levels of society. But I also acknowledge that there's always that there, and in order for us to get along in a society and to have as free a society as we want, everybody has to acknowledge that and be prepared to deal with it.
Yeah.
So when there is somebody that's dominating too much, you need to speak up a little bit, you know? So that, I guess my point, like when I had my conversation with my mother, my point was not that we need to be the conqueror, that we should try and eliminate that from everybody, is that we need to be prepared for it because we have to live with it no matter what we idealize about the world. Yeah.
Here's another quote. This one's from Da Vinci, and again, to amplify what you just said, quote, nothing strengthens authority so much as silence.
Yeah, that is true. Who is it that said nobody encourages evil as those who are silent, something like that? Okay, sorry, I wasn't ready to have a comeback for that one. But that's a great point. Yeah.
And it goes back to what I was saying earlier about how we have this tendency to just abdicate our own responsibility in our community, in our government. You know, I'm too busy, I'm raising kids, I'm too busy at work, I'm too busy at whatever.
And we are too busy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'll just let so-and-so take care of that. He's a good guy.
Yeah.
I don't want to sound like an alarmist, but it's how we get to people like Hitler. You wonder, well, how the heck did we get there? Well, too many people said, he's doing a good job. Let him do it. He wants to be in charge. Let him do it. Yeah.
That's a great point. We always need to be aware that somebody's ready to go too far.
Yeah.
You know, and it maybe not be right here in town, but that's always there.
Yeah. It's amazing to me how easily it happens. Right? It keeps happening. Historically, it happens over and over again, and we get these bad candidates that become bad elected officials, and they stick around forever. I'm probably going to make somebody mad here, but Senator Kennedy. I mean, the lion of the Senate, you know, like a woman dies at his hands, right? And he never gets thrown out of office. In the entire state of Massachusetts, I know it's not Texas, it's a smaller state, but you're telling me that there wasn't anybody else that could be a senator for that state.
Who was it that said, I'd rather be ruled by the first 50 names in the phone book than by the people in Washington? I can't remember who said that. It was a while ago. It's because the 50 people in the phone book don't want to be there, and people that want to be there stay there forever and ever and ever.
Looks like it's time to pay some bills.
Okay, we're going to take a quick break. This is Ceasefire with Dale and Ron. We'll be right back. Bernie has its own bookshop. In fact, it's called the Bernie Bookshop. Hi, I'm Dale Adams, inviting you to get lost. Get lost in a good book in our relaxed and casual atmosphere. We have a wide and eclectic selection in the Bernie Bookshop, and we pride ourselves on finding what you're looking for. We do author meet and greets, host writing workshops, and can connect you with a good book club. And your young ones will absolutely love our kids section at the Bernie Bookshop. And while we want you to get lost, we're easy to find, as we're in the heart of Bernie, at the back of the Richter Tavern building. We are the Bernie Bookshop. Welcome back. This is Ceasefire with Dale and Ron, and we're on the path to conquering the world, or at least talking about it a little bit. When I was in college, we used to always sit around and talk about politics and all kinds of other stuff too. But inside, I had this sort of philosophy that, okay, you know what? The government's going to take my money and do stuff with it that I want. But you know what? They'll take 20%. They can have it. Just leave me alone. And I sort of went with that for a while. And unfortunately, it didn't stay at 20%.
Yeah.
And they didn't leave me alone. And so it's been 30, 40 years now. Things have gotten more invasive, and they're taking a bigger chunk of my money. And I finally sort of got to the point where, well, okay, no, it's too much.
You know what I find interesting about that? And I know we're doing a show on power and authority and all that, but it's the first part of what you said. When I was in college, we'd sit around and talk about politics. When I was in college, we sat around and talked about girls, but where you went to school. Politics. Who was talking about politics back then?
Oh, this was during when the first Desert Storm invaded Iraq.
Oh, okay, I can see that.
I went and got a massive map of Iraq, and we posted it on the wall in the house, and we'd follow all the invasion routes and stuff like that.
Oh, my goodness, man.
It was when CNN first came out, and they had their headline news, and they were every day.
Yeah.
We were pounded with what was going on over there. Sort of overkill, I know, but it was an interesting experience.
Samuel told all the words of the Lord to the people who were asking him for a king. He said, "This is what the king who will reign over you will claim as his rights. He will take your sons and make them serve with his chariots and horses, and they will run in front of his chariots. Some he will assign to be commanders of thousands and commanders of 50s, and others to plow his ground and reap his harvest. He will take your daughters to be perfumers and cooks and bakers. He will take the best of your fields and vineyards and olive groves and give them to his attendants. He will take 1/10 of your grain and of your vintage and give it to his officials and attendants. Your male and female servants and the best of your cattle and donkeys he will take for his own use. He will take 1/10 of your flocks, and you yourselves will become his slaves. When that day comes, you will cry out for relief from the king you have chosen, but the Lord will not answer you in that day." Much like you were talking about, that 20% just keeps growing and growing and growing, and we keep going back to the ballot box, assuming that that's enough. It's enough that I just do this. I go there, I voted. Well, I voted, right? But it's not enough, is it?
No, it's not. That verse and the whole discussion in the Bible about the transition to kings from the prophets, I find it fascinating because it just shows that there's so much understanding in there about our world today. The lessons of life are there's so many of them. But that one particularly I always thought was neat because, nobody talks about that now. There's a lot of talk about different parts of the Bible, but not about that aspect where they warned about having kings and said, they will oppress you eventually. It always happens. And it does always happen. A warning that's 3,000 years old that we should finally start listening to.
Right.
Yeah. But people wanted somebody to take care of them so that they didn't have to lead their little home community or whatever, you know.
And, you know, how many times do these people disappoint you? Not just the kings, the senators, the congressmen, the mayors, the council members. I think the bigger part of this message here for me has always been idolatry. Yes. We take our eyes off of God and we put our eyes on humans as saviors. The king's going to save us. The president's going to get us out of here. The president, if it's Obama, it's going to give us hope. If it's Trump, he's going to make America great again. Yeah. And the message for the Christians is that it's neither one of them. The person that's going to make America great again, not a person at all, it's God. Yeah. And that's always been my takeaway from that passage, is that we look to each other or to other humans to bail us out of situations that really God is our only true hope for.
And that's who you should turn to for guidance. How many times have you been disappointed by your elected officials? And popped in my head. And I wonder, how many times have I not been disappointed by my elected officials?
Yeah.
Everybody compromises. They compromise, and their sparkle for power. I don't want to say quest or desire, because some people don't have that much, but they always have a sparkle. It's disappointing when you see that. And even myself. I saw things in myself when I was an elected official that I was like, you know, I don't like seeing that in myself. And it wasn't big things, but it's just sort of like background thoughts that I would think and feel about different issues that would come up. And I was like, you know what? I don't like that.
All right.
But it's part of it.
That resonates, because you and I have talked about this before. You know, we look back and we think, well, if I could vote on that again, I would have voted differently. And it's not.
Well, maybe we wouldn't have, because we would have been in that same headspace.
But there are challenges, because there are things that you believe philosophically, and then there are things that you have to do out of prudence or compromise
to get things done,
to get something done.
Yeah.
I've always used this analogy to try and explain things to people, that some of the worst elected officials that you see are the people that immediately get elected into office. Congress is a great example, the Matt Gaetzes of the world, or the AOCs, and they're looking to go in there and throw Hail Mary passes, right?
Yeah.
So I'm going to use a football analogy here. And so they've got these strong convictions, and they're going to embarrass everybody, even people in their own side of the aisle, and they accomplish nothing. In 2 years, 4 years, 6 years, they might raise a lot of money, and they'll be the talking head on Fox or MSNBC. Then there's the person that actually understands the game of football, and they're just looking to get the next first down. And if they get enough of those, they'll eventually work their way into the end zone. Hard workers, they got their nose to the grindstone. Unfortunately, every now and then, they have to make a compromise. And they're the ones that will get battered by the ones that are throwing the Hail Mary passes. Oh, look at that. He voted with the Democrats on this, or he voted with the Republicans on that.
Yeah.
But they're moving that ball forward. You and I both know that we have to do that a few times.
Yeah.
Didn't always feel good about ourselves. Didn't like going to bed at night with that feeling. But did we win the game?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm going to bring up our book for today. And so for those of you that are out to conquer the world, at the Bernie Bookshop, we have the landmark Julius Caesar, the complete works of all his memoirs and whatnot. So if you are interested in conquering the world, you can come down and read something by a guy who almost did, you know, his part of the world anyway.
Right.
His part of the whole world. So pretty neat book. It's a big, thick book. We got it. I think maybe I've sold it once. But I figure it's kind of a classic, you know.
That is I mean, you could hurt somebody with that book.
Yeah, you could. Yeah. It's probably got a lot of insights in it.
Oh, and small print, too. Those are my least favorite books. So how many times have you seen, on a local level, an issue come up and a bunch of people galvanize around somebody who becomes sort of the mouthpiece for that issue, and then, a month, 2 months in, that person says something and a bunch of people kind of pull back and say, whoa, wait a second.
Yeah.
I was with you on this, but not that. And I saw that so many times in 8 years on council. You know, they become the official voice, the spokesperson, right?
Yeah.
And then they go one bridge too far and the group starts to splinter.
Because they thought that they were a leader of a group and not just a presenter of a concept. They thought, oh, I'm the leader, and so I can go whichever way I want. And who is it that said that a true leader leads people in the direction that they want to go? Something like that.
Yeah.
Basically, that the leader doesn't decide where the group goes. The leader is able to read the group dynamics and knows where the group wants to go.
Yeah.
Thinks in that way. I mean, I think there's a balancing act going on there. But I think your point about people going beyond what everybody assumed that they were leading for is valid.
Yeah.
I think that really is.
And it's hard when you're in that position, when you're an elected official, to keep a pulse on where people want you to go, because sometimes you get into these echo chambers and you forget that you were elected by a large number of people, all with differing opinions and ideas. But I think my message today, more than anything, is not to those elected officials and not to those leaders, but it's to the people who keep giving the authority, who keep walking away from their responsibility for civic engagement. Stop wondering how Hitler came into power and start working to make sure it never happens again.
Right.
You know?
Right. I mean, it's our duty as citizens to make sure those leaders are accountable.
Yeah.
And that they're informed about what the populace wants.
Right.
You know, I mean, it's sort of two-way. I mean, yes, people get into politics or into leadership roles and they sort of lose touch with the base or whatever, with the people. But it's also incumbent on the people to make sure they don't lose touch.
Right.
You know, that's why we always say, go to those meetings, make a comment once in a while, you know, get to know your leaders. That's one thing I really like about our community is it's actually really easy to get to know your leaders.
Yes.
I mean, they're walking among us and they shop at the same stores we shop and you can see them wandering around like the rest of us.
So what should we be looking for? Like, what are the red lights that we've got somebody running for office that is in it for the power and the glory?
Are they running for office? Then they're in it for power and glory. That's just an assumption.
Yeah.
And I assume that about everybody that runs. They like the power and the glory.
Yeah.
Now, are they going to do good things? I'm hoping so. I honestly don't know how you pick out who's going to do good and who's not.
It's difficult. I would say that if you've got somebody saying, well, I'm going to do this and I'm going to do that, that's probably your first sign, but just about everybody does that. Or my administration will do this. Or I would love it probably won't ever happen to hear somebody say, well, the Constitution says.
Yeah. What's the basis for what they're doing? So maybe that's a good place to start, is to look at what are you basing your goals on, your decisions on.
Right.
Are you using the Constitution? Are you using the Bible? Are you using the telephone book? Are you using your Rolodex? You know, I mean, what's the basis for your passions?
Usually Calvin and Hobbes.
That's not a bad one, actually. I love Calvin and Hobbes.
I think that wraps it up for today.
Thank you for listening to Ceasefire with Dale and Ron. If you missed any of it, you can always go to BernieRadio.com and listen to our podcast. You can listen to the past ones. And this one will show up tomorrow at noon, I believe, right? So, until next week. Thanks. Bye.